Welcome back to Her Time, Her Health with me, your host, Dr. Jila. And today I have an amazing, wonderful guest for you all. I'm joined by Dr. Joey Munoz, who we are going to jump right into it and really get to the root of what's going on. And I want to hear your background. I want to know kind of what made you decide to go this route and really educate people on health, wellness, nutrition, diet, exercise. Give me the background.
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, thank you for having me on. I'm excited for the conversation. So my background, so what I do is I help people get in great shape in a way that feels sustainable and enjoyable for their life. As I'm sure we'll dive into it, people are just really confused when it comes to
Yeah.
the whole health and fitness, nutrition, exercise sort of thing, because on one side, it's great that there is very like a large amount of accessible information, but there's also a lot of contradicting information, right? So a lot of what I do is helping cut through the noise and really simplify nutrition and fitness because being healthy, getting in shape, at least from like the objective strategy piece of what you need to be doing isn't really that complicated and people feel like it needs to be more complicated than it actually is. I became passionate about this because of my own journey growing up and struggling with health and fitness and body image and all that stuff. I always tell this story. It's because it's what has really stuck with me most from my childhood. But when I was probably around 10 to 12 years old, I was a fairly overweight kid despite growing up in a household where both of my parents exercised regularly. So I've always had a healthy relationship with exercise and fitness and sports, but I was very overweight. And the reason being is because I am a first generation Cuban American. And so my parents come from a country where food is scarce. And so one of the ways they showed love was through food, right? If I was sad, if I was, if I did well, like every sort of reward was around food. And so we went to the doctor once. I think I was about 11 years old. And I remember the doctor pulling my mom aside and whispering to her, telling her that I'm about 1% body fat away from being obese and that I had to go on a diet. And so from then on, that's kind of like where my journey started with this whole health and fitness thing. Without any intentional malice, my mom started putting me on all sorts of diets. And she didn't know what she was doing. She would just, whatever she would
Yeah.
see was whatever headline she would hear, whatever her trainer would tell her at the gym, she would do. So I went on like a no carb diet and I've done it all. And in my early teenage years, I've also been somebody who has a fairly like obsessive personality. So if I start to like something, I like naturally want to learn more and more about it. So in my early teenage years, probably when I was between 13 and 15, I started reading everything I could find online and going on YouTube and watching hours of information about nutrition and fitness. And there was no like evidence-based nutrition and fitness space online back in the day. So that's where a lot of my personal struggles started throughout my childhood. And for me, at least for my journey, like education has been a really powerful catalyst for me to develop a healthier relationship with not just my body, but with nutrition, with fitness, to where now it's part of who I am. I have a very healthy relationship with it. I credit a lot of the success that I've had in my life to fitness, and we can dive into that if you want.
Mhm.
And so I decided to pursue my doctoral degree in clinical nutrition because I've always just really been passionate about nutrition and fitness. And funny enough, when I was doing my PhD, as you know, during a doctoral degree, you're pretty much trained to work in an academic setting, to be a researcher, to be a professor. But prior to that, I worked as a personal trainer for a couple of years, and I've always just really enjoyed working hands on with people.
Mhm.
And I've always had a bit of an entrepreneurial spirit as well. So after I finished my doctoral degree, thanks to my wife, actually, I took a big risk to start posting content online and build my own business. And I say thanks to my wife because at the time I had some imposter syndrome. I was like, I have a doctoral degree. What am I doing this whole social media
Right.
thing? Maybe you've experienced some of that.
Mhm.
And my wife was like, what's the worst thing that can happen? We don't have kids yet. We don't have any huge responsibilities. Like, just do it for a year. And if it doesn't work out, you can just go back down the academic route.
Mhm.
I'm so glad she said that to me because it's been the best journey ever. And now, 6 years later, here we are.
Right. No, and I see a lot of your content. I relate to it quite well. And I think we all do have that component of imposter syndrome where, we're professionals with degrees
Mhm.
and,
Mhm.
what are we doing putting ourselves out there like that? But I think it is also our duty to put ourselves out there and put the correct information. So to kind of cut through the noise. And so people who are looking for education are getting it from appropriate sources, such as yourself, which, you've delved into this. You've gotten, as many degrees and educated yourself to the nth level where you can give the appropriate advice. So I'm kind of glad your wife did that too. Okay. So let me ask you, with more nutrition information than ever before,
Mm.
why do you feel people are more confused now?
Because there's so much to sort through.
Yeah.
I think it's really that simple.
Hmm.
Uh, at least, I mean, my perception is skewed based off what I hear from the people that I interact with and the people that work with us.
Hmm.
But across the board, anytime I have a conversation with a new client or somebody who's looking for help and ask them, what are your challenges? It's always multifaceted. People experience many different challenges. But undoubtedly, one of them is I'm just confused. I really just don't know what to do because information is so readily available
Hmm.
and there's no quality control. If you go on social media and you type in nutrition, I mean, the first videos that are going to pop up are horrible. Why? Because the way social media works is that controversial information gets more attention,
Hmm.
right? So if you say something controversial, people share it more, people
Hmm.
engage with it more. Therefore, it reaches more people. And that's the unfortunate part because you're not going to the first video you're going to see is not somebody like myself telling you, hey, you need to have a sustainable diet and you shouldn't cut anything out, but we have to focus on these healthy habits. And these are the healthy habits and you need to be flexible. It's just, as you mentioned earlier,
Right.
it's not sexy enough,
Right.
right? But the person that hops on and tells you, hey, don't eat these kinds of vegetables because they're rich in phytates and phytates are horrible for XYZ and they're going to kill you, like that gets a lot of attention.
Yeah.
And I think the challenge, Gila, for you and I is that a lot of that stuff just seems like common sense.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, this is ridiculous. This isn't true.
Hmm.
But to the average consumer, it's not that obvious. Because what I have realized is very common is that the people that share these messages, they have enough education to be convincing,
Right.
right? So they will attach a particular mechanism or something that happens physiologically, and there's like an inkling of truth, but then they extrapolate and pull it so far,
Mm.
right? So, for example, the whole concept that we shouldn't eat, and this is very common in like the carnivore space,
Hmm.
like let's not eat vegetables because they're high in these things called anti-nutrients, which cause inflammation and they're so harmful and blah blah blah. There is some truth to that in the sense that these compounds are toxic or anti-nutrients or whatever you want to call them, but there's so much more to the story, right? Like the whole concept of the dose makes the poison is really important.
Hmm.
So the issue is when I'm going to explain these things with nuance, it requires 10 minutes of explanation to dispel why a 30-second claim is incorrect, and nobody's going to commit those 10 minutes, right?
Right.
So with this point, to just help the audience out, if anybody has heard this before, these compounds that have quote unquote toxic effects, and I don't even like that word, but I think it paints the picture. The dose makes the poison, meaning what? Our bodies, there's something called hormesis, right? Which is our body's ability to adapt to stress and be more resilient to that stress. This whole idea that it causes inflammation, everybody thinks inflammation is the worst thing in the world. It's not. There's a difference between acute and chronic inflammation. And some acute inflammation can be good, right? Dr. Gila, if I told you there's this thing that causes a ton of inflammation,
Hmm.
it makes you weaker acutely, it causes muscle damage, and you're extremely fatigued after, would you say that's something that's good or bad?
Right.
Most people would say that's bad. Well,
Exactly.
that's what exercise does.
Hmm.
But at the right dose, your body can recover and become more resilient to those things. So, funny enough, many of the health benefits that we credit to the consumption of vegetables, at least in part, is likely due to the hormetic effect that these anti-nutrients have on your physiology,
Right.
right? So it's like they just take something and make it sound so simple. And the truth is that physiology is never simple. As an MD, you know this, it's complicated.
Right.
And the issue is that to understand the complex, you need to commit time. and nobody's committing time on social media. I really think that's the root cause of the
Yeah.
confusion.
No, I think they all want, they see the 30-second clip and that grabs attention. And so to kind
Mhm.
of like what you just, I'm going back to your point where we need to educate and explain, and these things take time and nuance. So what might work for somebody may not be something for the next person. So really, a lot of these conversations need to happen in order for that individual, the consumer, to kind of really understand what is being sold to them, basically, in terms of marketing out there.
Agreed.
And, there's a lot of myths that still persist despite strong evidence in terms of nutrition and things like that. What are a couple like that just pop into your head that you hear most commonly that you dispel on a daily basis?
I will share a couple for sure. What I want to first share is that um, they all have a commonality, and it's how they're presented. And I share this with the audience because I'll share 2 or 3 examples. There are dozens. Okay, it's when somebody, specifically in the nutrition space, takes a particular food and says that it's bad, and they share some mechanism, and it says that it's going to result in a particular outcome, right? Like vegetables, bad, they have anti-nutrients, cause inflammation, whatever sort of disease is going to happen afterwards there, right? Anytime anybody speaks about nutrition in absolute terms, this food causes that, this food doesn't do this, it's never true, because the nuance always matters, the context always matters, right? Because food doesn't have an impact on your body in isolation. It really is about the overall dietary pattern. It's about how it interacts with your physiology. It's also about what else are you doing in your life, right? I think we can all agree that we should limit highly processed food consumption, right?
Yes.
I like using extreme examples because I think extreme examples paint the picture. But if somebody has been starving for 2 weeks and they're about to die, give them a Snickers bar, right? Like it's going to help them. So context really matters. I like the extremes because they paint the picture. So what are some of the common ones? Well, the whole anti-fruit, anti-vegetable, anti-plant-based stuff from the carnivore side is a very clear example of that. The whole don't eat carbohydrates because they cause you to gain body fat because they raise your insulin levels, and insulin is a fat storage hormone. Completely incorrect. Completely incorrect. In fact, people that have a healthier body composition typically have a higher carbohydrate consumption. It's just also about consuming the right kind of carbohydrates. And when I say that, it's not that the wrong kind of carbohydrates inherently cause weight gain. It's that when we eat the right kind of carbohydrates, they help you feel fuller, they help you feel more satiated, so they help you naturally reduce your overall food intake. So the carb one is a very clear
Big
one.
one, yeah.
There's some, just like people say that every food is bad for any particular reason, like anti-dairy.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people in the vegan space will just say don't ever eat red meat because it causes cancer. It's like there's nuance there. There's nuance there, right? Because red meat is also very nutrient dense, and we want to select the right kinds of red meat, and dose matters, right? So like it's just very, it's complicated, but at the same time, it's not complicated. I
Right.
think a clear one, Dr. Jila, now that I'm saying these things out loud, is anytime anybody tells you to cut out any particular whole food group from your diet
Right.
because it's inherently bad for a particular reason, it's just not true.
Not true. Yeah.
Dairy, legumes, grains, meat, fruit, vegetables, they should all be part of your diet. In fact, when we look at the research, people who have greater nutritional diversity, meaning they eat a wider array of different whole foods, they have better health outcomes. And the reason why is simple, because different food groups are rich in different nutrients. And we want different nutrients so we're not deficient in anything, and we can optimize health. If you are not allergic or sensitive to a particular food, there is no need to cut it out from your diet. And it is likely that if you do cut it out from your diet, it would have a net negative impact on your overall health.
You're touching on a lot of topics that I kind of have been thinking about. And one of them is, why do you feel, or why do you see a lot of people that you take care of and you coach through all of this and guide them with their nutrition and their diet regimens and their exercise. Why do you feel weight loss is they gain weight, or they're not successful in losing the weight or maintaining the loss?
We can talk about this for hours.
Hours, yeah. Yeah.
From my perspective, it comes down to three things,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll dive into each one. One is a strategic mismatch between what they're doing and the outcomes they're actually trying to achieve. I'll
Mm-hmm.
explain that in a second. The second is a lack of fundamental education. Oftentimes, people blindly follow plans without understanding why they're doing what they're doing. So when they hit a wall or they stop seeing progress, they feel really frustrated because they don't know what to do from there.
Mm.
And that frustration just causes them to fall off altogether,
Right.
right? And then the last one, which is not an objective thing around nutrition or exercise or anything like that, is that oftentimes people don't have support systems. This is why I work with people and I tell people, like, I know one of the things that you want to discuss is like, how do you determine who's a good source of information and who's not? One of the things that I see often on social media that really bothers me is when people gatekeep, or what they're trying to sell is a unique method, a
Right.
unique way to lose weight, a unique way to build muscle, a unique, that is, can I curse on this podcast? You better me
Yes,
not. That is horseshit.
absolutely. Yeah, it's complete. Yeah.
What I always tell people is like, listen, all the information that you need, I share it for free.
Yeah.
Why? Because I think information should be accessible. I think information should be free. What I help people do is implement the information consistently and support people and help people navigate the day-to-day challenges, right?
Mm-hmm.
So anyways, I think those are really three big problem areas: strategic mismatch, a lack of fundamental knowledge, and a lack of support. From a strategic perspective, here's what I mean. First and foremost, oftentimes people target the wrong thing. I don't think weight loss is the goal for anybody.
Mm-hmm.
I think the goal is improving your body composition.
Correct.
We need to shift the focus away from the number on the scale and focus on muscle, on preserving and building muscle. I'm not telling people they can't lose weight. Weight loss can be part of that. But weight loss is not the North Star. Improving your body composition is the North Star.
Mm-hmm.
Body composition simply means the ratio of fat and muscle mass that you have on your body. Because when everybody says they want to lose weight, Dr. Gila, what they mean is they want to lose body fat.
Mm-hmm.
But they synonymize both of those terms, and those terms are not the same thing. Because when you lose weight, it's always a certain amount of fat mass, it's always a certain amount of lean mass, muscle tissue.
Mm-hmm.
And what we want to do is lose weight in a way where we maximize fat loss and we minimize muscle loss. In fact, you can actually build muscle while reducing body fat. And the way you actually lose weight impacts that outcome. What most people do, Dr. Gila, is they just focus on eating less. And if you allow me, let me go on a monologue here, because this is my
I
bread and
want to
butter,
hear
and I
this.
really want
Yes.
to
And my
double
audience
down on
has to
this.
hear this. Tell us.
Yeah.
I want to hear the monologue.
Okay, great. So what most people do when they try to lose weight is they go on a diet. It's often a restrictive diet, which isn't sustainable long term. And they feel like they just need to exercise more, so they start doing a bunch of cardio. Some people are lifting weights, which is great, right? And they just want to focus on getting that number down as fast as they can. I just want to lose 20 pounds. I just want to lose whatever the number is. And that's the only thing they're focused on. And their whole, like, first off, psychology is just wrapped around what that number on the scale says. If they lost a pound, they're happy. And it doesn't matter what they did. And if they gained a pound, they're mad, even if they're doing everything perfectly. So it's such a hyperfixation on the outcome and not the process, right? But beyond that, when you just focus on losing weight quickly, doing some of these restrictive methods and these restrictive diets, what happens is a larger proportion of the weight that you lose comes from lean tissue, muscle mass.
Mm-hmm.
And lean tissue is metabolically active. It contributes to your metabolism. And you'll hear people talk all the time about, I have a slow metabolism, I have a fast metabolism. Most times people don't even know what the word metabolism means. But we can define it simply. It's the amount of energy your body burns to keep your normal organs functioning and keep you alive, right? How much muscle you have is an important component of that. When we have more muscle, we have a healthier metabolism. We burn more energy. So what happens when you lose weight quickly and using some of these restrictive methods and not focusing on healthy dietary habits? You lose substantial muscle mass. So now, yes, you've lost 20 pounds, but first off, your body doesn't look that different because your body composition hasn't changed much. Secondarily, you actually have to eat less now to maintain a lower body weight because your metabolic rate has lowered. Now that you have to eat less, your hunger and satiety isn't under regulation as well. So now you feel hungry and it feels like you're constantly battling to maintain a lower body weight, right? It's too much friction. It's too difficult. When people say like weight loss feels really hard, oftentimes the approach is wrong. When you focus on building muscle and improving your body composition, it's just healthier and more sustainable by design. First and foremost, you cannot restrict your way into a better body composition. You just can't. You have to have a healthy diet. You have to meet certain fundamental habits and principles around nutrition that support muscle growth and recovery. And when you do that, your body composition improves, your metabolic rate improves. Now you have more flexibility with nutrition. Now you don't feel like you have to starve yourself. So it actually feels like your body is working with you, not against you. That is the goal, right? So big picture, big strategic mismatch is that people focus on weight loss too much instead of improving body composition. Now, let's say they know they have to improve their body composition. What actually needs to be done? I'm a big believer, and I acknowledge that I'm biased here. I'm a big believer that at the core of anybody's exercise routine, it needs to be focused around strength training and the right kind of strength training. I know you speak to a lot of women during midlife, right? Perimenopause, post-menopause. And it's so common for women in their mid to late 40s, 50s, 60s to not prioritize strength training. And that is a mistake. Because after the age of 30, we lose about 3 to 8% of our muscle mass per decade of life. So if you're in your 40s and your 50s, you've lost significant amounts of muscle mass if you're not doing the right things. And again, you lose muscle, lower metabolic rate. Now it's harder to lose weight. And people often blame things like menopause or age. Those are contributing factors. But what's actually happening is underneath that, it's the loss of muscle mass, right? So we need to be strength training. This doesn't mean you have to be in the gym every single day for 2 hours like a bodybuilder. We just want some good, solid structure around strength training and doing it in a way that is optimal for muscle growth and strength. A caveat I'll add here is that just because you lift weights or you're using weights does not mean you are building muscle.
Right.
The analogy I like to use, like just because you go for a walk doesn't mean you are training for a marathon. Right? You're using the same tool, but you need to use it in a way that's specific for the outcome. I won't dive into all the specifics here because it's really nuanced. But people often talk about, Dr. Jila, their workout program. They're like, I need a better workout program. I always say that the workout program is really the tip of the iceberg. Yes, it's important, but it's just the tip of the iceberg. Everything that's underneath the water are the actual variables. Things like what exercises are you doing? How are you doing them? What is your intensity? What's your range of motion? What's your tempo? Like those are the variables that we need to tweak to make sure that what you're doing actually stimulates muscle growth. Okay, so I know that's fairly vague. I have resources, and I towards the end of the episode, I would love to share some resources with your audience so they can learn more about the specific variables. But it'll just be really boring if I get into this. So that's on the training side. On the nutrition side, we need to have what I call the fundamentals of a healthy and sustainable diet. And to me, that means three things. One is your diet. First off, we need to focus on developing the foundation of a healthy diet, right? Foundation by focusing on specific habits and variables. The analogy I like to use here, Dr. Jila, is that if you're going to build a house, you don't build the walls and the roof and the windows first. You build the foundation. You have to have a solid foundation. So people will start to focus on this diet and cutting my calories and that without having a solid foundation at all. We focus on the foundation first because when we have a solid foundation, it does a couple of things. It ensures that you meet both your macronutrient and your micronutrient needs, so you're not deficient in anything. And it really helps you with hunger and satiety regulation. Because one of the things that people struggle with when they're focusing on fat loss is feeling hungry all the time. And it's often because they're not focusing on specific types of foods that help you manage your hunger and your satiety. Okay, so we build the foundation first. This is where you'll hear about things like fiber intake and whole foods and protein and meal structure and meal timing, right? These are all variables that we can manipulate to have a solid foundation. When you have the foundation in place, secondarily, we need to tailor your nutrition for your goals. A lot of people eat healthy, but they're not losing weight because the two are not synonymous. So this is where variables like your caloric intake come into play. If we're focusing on muscle, this is where your protein comes into play. For protein recommendations, people argue about this left and right. Very simple recommendation. Eat about 0.8 grams of protein per pound of ideal body weight. Okay? Simple calculation. If I weigh 250 pounds and I want to be 200 pounds, I take 200, multiply it by 0.8. That's about 160 grams of protein. I would be targeting that daily. You could go a little bit higher. You can go a little bit lower. not that big of a deal. Okay. And then calories. This is an interesting topic, and we can dive into it if you want, but calories matter. People talk about hormones, people talk about food choices, eating healthy versus processed, or is it calories? It's like, guys, it all matters. It's not one or the other, right? Calories matter. And the truth is that calories dictate whether you gain or lose weight. So if somebody is trying to lose weight, they have to be in a calorie deficit. What I always encourage is finding a caloric intake where you're losing about half a pound of your total body weight per week. It's slow, it's consistent, right? Because that allows you to not starve yourself and be able to fuel yourself properly to actually build muscle and improve your body composition. And the last piece I'll add here from the nutrition requirement is, so we've got the foundation, tailoring your nutrition to your goals, is doing those in a way that's sustainable. To me, that means two things: being flexible intentionally and enjoying the way you eat.
Right.
So being flexible means simple. Practice the 80-20 rule. You don't have to be perfect. Follow the principles that I shared 80% of the time, and then intentionally allow yourself to be flexible 15 to 20% of the time. If you go to a birthday party and you want a slice of cake, have the slice of cake. It's not that big of a deal. The issue is that people have the slice of cake, they feel bad, and now they go off the rails for a week, right? It's not the actual slice of cake, it's what happens after. So practice the 80-20 rule, be flexible intentionally, and two, enjoy the way you eat. What does that mean? As you noticed, everything that I talked about, protein, fiber, meal structure, I'm not telling you eat this food, don't eat that food. These principles, these habits can be met with the foods that you like eating.
Right.
The perfect example that I always give is being a Cuban American. I've grown up eating rice and beans my whole life. I love rice and beans. A lot of my fiber comes from eating beans. I would never follow a ketogenic diet. It just does not mesh with my dietary preferences, right? So zooming back out, that's kind of like what needs to be done from a strategic perspective. A lot of times people are just doing the wrong things, following diets, not focusing on strength training, not focusing on the sustainability piece, not focusing on the foundation. So there's a mismatch from the approach. The other two, I promise you, are going to be a lot quicker than the strategic one, because the strategic one is what's heavy. But from an educational perspective, Dr. Jila, I've also found that most people are given fish and they never learn to fish, right? Meaning they just follow a plan.
Right.
And the thing is, you can follow a diet plan. You can follow, somebody can tell you some calories. Somebody can give you a workout plan. And I would never say those things don't work. They do, but they work to an extent. Because at some point, progress stalls. How many times do people say, like, I lost 10 pounds, but I can't lose any more from here? Progress stalls. It's true. And you need to make changes. Or you burn out because what you're doing feels too restrictive. Or something about your life changes and then you can't follow that plan anymore.
Right.
And when that happens, often, most of the time what occurs is the person feels frustrated because they don't know what to do to continue seeing progress, because they don't actually fundamentally understand why they're doing what they're doing. And what happens when you're frustrated and you don't see progress? You just fall off, right? So people go in this yo-yo dieting cycle. It's because they lack fundamental understanding. Whenever I work with someone, yes, I give them the plan, but like education is a huge part of what I do. Because my goal truly for anybody that I work with is that when they are done working with us, they feel like they've learned enough to navigate this stuff on their own and not feel confused. You need to learn how to make changes when progress stalls, how to do things in a way that feels flexible, how to navigate social situations. Education is a big part of it. And lastly, Dr. Jila, is, hopefully you're not bored of my voice by now.
No,
is,
this is amazing information. Yeah, this is wonderful.
Accountability and support is really important.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, if I summarize what somebody is trying to do in one sentence, it is to develop habits around the behaviors that support the health and body composition that they're trying to develop. Okay, so I'll say that again. The goal for everyone is to form habits around the behaviors that support the health and body that you want to have. Because your health and body are simply a delayed reflection of your daily habits. Okay? And the strategy is great, the education is great, but none of that matters if you can't stay consistent.
Stay consistent, yeah.
And people that struggle with consistency, like, that's a whole other topic. It's multifaceted. But one thing is for sure. When you have accountability and you have support and you have somebody in your corner who cares about you, you are substantially more likely to stay consistent. And consistency is one of the variables that's necessary for habit formation, right? When we put the whole framework together, what I think is necessary is we need to be consistent. We also need to see progress. A lot of people feel like they're trying really hard and not seeing progress because the progress itself builds internal motivation.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever you do to see progress, aka the strategy or the game plan, needs to feel sustainable so you can stick to it long term. Because whatever you do to achieve the results, you need to keep doing. And lastly, you need to understand why you're doing what you're doing
Right.
so you don't depend on somebody and you can navigate this on your own.
Yeah.
Okay, so zooming out, I think those three things are the big reason why people struggle with long-term weight loss. The statistic is horrendous. It's
Mm-hmm.
what, like over 95, 98% of
100%.
people who lose a significant amount of weight, defined by more than 10% of their total body weight, regain it all, if not more, within 5 years. I really think it's because of the approach
Right.
more
Right.
than anything else.
I think it speaks to a lot of what you're talking about, which is where it is not understanding the fundamentals, because then they're not able to apply it to their life in the future, right? It's all about being kind of building it into your lifestyle. It's not a new way of thinking, it's a new way of just living and being. And we need to really work on that with our clients and our patients. And education is the basics of all of this, because like you said, I see it day in and day out. If they don't understand, they've yo-yo dieted. I've been with patients for over 2 decades and I've seen them on every diet out there, and they've tried it, they lose weight, they come back, they're right back at it. And so they, it's, and I try and explain, and again, I'm coming from an OBGYN background where we had pregnant patients, right? So they were supposed to eat a certain amount of food and a certain diet during pregnancy to maintain, their health as well as the baby's health. And then we had patients who had gestational diabetes, so we had to address that differently. But in terms of midlife women, and what happens there is they are definitely frustrated with the weight loss. They want the quick fix. And now I'm going to get really controversial here with you. And we're going to talk about peptides, GLP-1s, and all of this, which is coming into the conversation. And I think it's a very nuanced discussion with people.
Yeah.
And I think it deserves, there is a role, but I don't think it's an end all be all for everyone. I don't think it's for that midlife woman who has 5 to 10 pounds to lose,
Yeah.
and is just frustrated with herself. And, she just, and I do body compositions. I don't do weight. I have a body comp in the office. And so I have them come on that every time, like once at the beginning, every 3-6 months, especially if we're working. I want to show them those data points and show them it's
Mm-hmm.
not about the number. Like you said, I want to look at your muscle. Whatever you have, we're going to build. And
Yep.
they tell me, like, are you sure I can still build at this age? And, I'm like, yes, this is exactly what you can do. And these are, and again, the protein varies, right? 0.8 to 1.2 to 1.6 grams per kilogram. It varies, but there are basics, like just do this and you will see those results. But I think it's them not having flexibility with themselves, and also not someone holding them accountable. So I think programs like yours speak to this so much, because you give them the tools so they can live longer, and then go into their longevity and living longer with more muscle and having, being able to move and not be dependent on others. And it, makes them feel better overall. So talk to me about where you stand. If somebody comes to you and they told you they've tried GLP-1s, they're on it, and how do you feel about it? Tell me how you approach those people, those
Yeah.
consumers.
GLP-1 specifically, like you
Mm-hmm.
mentioned, I think it's a nuanced conversation. We have many clients who are on GLPs.
Mm-hmm.
And oftentimes, like specifically, we've had clients come to us because they want to be able to improve the lifestyle side of things so that they can come off of GLPs long term as well.
Mm-hmm.
Because outside of the conversation of good or bad, good candidate, not a candidate, the vast majority of people that use them don't want to be on them forever.
Right.
Most people don't want to be on a particular medication for the rest of their life,
Mm-hmm.
right? So my general perspective is right time, right place. There's a lot of people that benefit from them. They've obviously been a revolutionary medication. I think with everything, Jila, it's a personal decision to weigh the pros and cons.
Mm-hmm.
And in many instances, the pros significantly outweigh the cons,
Mm-hmm.
right? We know that being significantly overweight or obese carries many negative health implications. And for some people, it can be the kickstart they need to actually start improving their health. Some people are almost on their deathbed. And what are you going to tell them? Don't use a GLP-1, just focus a little harder. That's not helpful. That doesn't do anything, right? But then on the flip side, I do think they're being overly marketed in many ways. Because like, who wouldn't like to take a pill and lose 15 pounds? I mean, that's always been the joke before GLP-1s. Like, I wish I could just take a pill and lose 20 pounds or 15 or whatever the number is. And now you can kind of do that. But the thing is, I have a video coming out in a week where it's like what a GLP-1 can't buy. And I talk about it more from the aspect of like resilience and discipline and confidence. But also physiologically, it's like, if you are on a GLP-1 and you're not focusing on all the stuff that I just talked about, you're going to lose a significant amount of muscle mass.
Yeah.
Interestingly, the data do show that GLP-1s do not uniquely exacerbate muscle loss. Like if you lose 30 pounds on a GLP-1 or you lose 30 pounds without a GLP-1 by just starving yourself, you would lose a very similar amount of muscle mass. But we talked about the fact that that's not healthy, right? So we don't want to exacerbate muscle loss. One of the things that impacts the rate of muscle loss is also the overall rate of weight loss. The faster you lose weight, the more you are potentially sacrificing muscle loss. And one of the potential issues with GLP is that you lose weight pretty quickly, right? So one is you are putting muscle mass at risk if you're just using GLPs as a band-aid or like the only solution. Right? You still need to focus on muscle health if you care about being healthy, which most people do. If you care about not being osteopenic or osteoporotic, if you care about not increasing your risk of dementia and cardiovascular disease and diabetes, like all these things are influenced by your muscle health. That's why I mentioned earlier we were talking about weight, but muscle is so important for health outside of weight, right? So that's one piece. I think the second piece too, Dr. Jila, I saw a video from somebody the other day, and I wish I remember their name because I would love to give them credit for this. And it was like, imagine I'm speaking to somebody. It's like, hey, if you had your dream body today, or like we're in optimal health today, would you know how to maintain that?
Right.
The answer is most likely no.
No.
Because you have to develop the habits and behaviors, the skills to be able to maintain it. A GLP doesn't teach you that. And if your goal is to use a GLP to lose 10 or 15 pounds, you likely don't want to be on a GLP-1 forever. What do you think happens when you come off the GLP? You're going to regain it, right? And again, in our realm, Dr. Jila, yes, people want to look better, they want to feel better, they want to be objectively healthier. Weight loss improves health if you have excessive amounts of fat to lose. If you just have 10 or 15 pounds to lose and you use a GLP-1, you might in some ways be worse off because of what we're talking about here, right? It's like you lose muscle. On top of that, you feel really full because what it does is blunt hunger. So you're not going to be really trying to go for protein and fiber because those are the most difficult foods to eat, right? Like when you don't feel hungry, you don't go for things like lean protein sources and beans and vegetables, like and whole grains, which are fibrous foods. So in many ways, you might be decreasing the quality of your overall nutrition, which is not good, right? And you're not incentivized to focus on those things because you're getting the outcome that you want, which is losing 10 pounds.
Yeah, you're looking at the number.
Now, I will say on the flip side, Dr. Gila, since I mentioned, I do think there are a ton of pros. I have pros like benefits. There have been clients of ours that have told us, like, I've been struggling with food noise my whole life. I'm not like a normal person. I can eat a normal amount of food and I'm still starving and I can't get my mind off of food. And that's multifaceted as well, right? But there is a physiological component. Some people don't produce ghrelin and leptin the same way, or hunger-related hormones. Their bodies aren't as sensitive to it. So there's definitely a physiological component. I also don't like when people just say, obesity is just genetics, or obesity is just lazy. It's what you put in your mouth. It's like, no, guys, there's like, all of it is true. There's a genetic component. Sure, there's a discipline component. There's an environmental component. There is how you were raised as a kid, right? Like all of this plays a role. But I've had clients tell me like, hey, using the GLP-1s has allowed me to lower the food noise so I can actually focus and concentrate on developing the healthy lifestyle habits that I need to be focusing on. And we've had people successfully come off of GLP-1s as well as a byproduct of doing that. So if you're doing it as a way to also focus on lifestyle, thumbs up. I think it's a good usage. But if you're using it as a band-aid, I don't think it's a good usage.
No, because I think at the end of the day, you're not getting to the root cause and you're not building those lifestyle foundations that are necessary to help you, thrive in the later years, right? In your 40s and 50s, you need to be building all of this up, 30s, 40s, and 50s, if I'm being honest, where you can glide healthily through your 60s, 70s, 80s, and beyond. And that's really
Yep.
what all we're talking about is we know we're living longer, especially women. Women are living longer than men, yet they are in poorer health, unfortunately. And if we start implementing this kind of lifestyle modification now, they're only going to have better outcomes later. Dr. Joey, talk to me about supplementation. There are ads all over the place about this supplement and that supplement and take this stack and how do you approach your clients, because you're doing nutrition, you're doing diet, so they're eating good, clean products, foods, all food groups. Where do you see supplements fitting in, and do they fit in?
Yeah, they do. They have a very minimal impact. Like for the vast majority of people, if you're not doing the stuff I've talked about, please don't think about supplements. Because even if they work, they have a very small impact, right? Most supplements have a very small impact, Dr. Gila. So when people talk about like, hey, this supplement does this, it's like, yeah, but how much does it actually do that? Most cases, very, very, very little. Right? So when it comes to supplementation, transparently, like 90% of what's in the market is just BS. There are so many claims around, like for example, for men, testosterone boosters. It's like they just don't do anything. They don't meaningfully increase your testosterone by any meaningful amount, right? Anything that will increase your testosterone meaningfully, you don't buy it over the counter at GMC.
Right.
Like you just it's that's not how it works, right? So from a supplementation perspective, there are a couple things that I think are very beneficial for the vast majority of people. And then I think there are very niche use case supplements based off the person's individual context. Okay. So across the board, supplements I recommend for everybody would be a high quality protein powder. Unfortunately, people struggle to hit their protein needs from whole foods often. So a high quality protein powder can help you meet those needs. If you are not sensitive to dairy, a high quality whey protein isolate is great, right? If you are sensitive to dairy, a plant-based protein powder is great. Protein products nowadays are really high quality. They have high digestibility. It's the same thing as protein from food. And I say that because oftentimes people think that it's something else because it's a supplement. It's just protein isolated from food.
Right.
On top of that, which I would also consider kind of like a food, not really a supplement, is a fiber supplement if somebody struggles to get their fiber intake in. Although I would really encourage you to try to get your fiber intake from food, because the foods that contain fiber also really help with satiety regulation. They tend to be very voluminous. You get a lot of food for low calories. Beyond that, I think it's really important to probably take a multivitamin. And I say a multivitamin just as a fail-safe. Most people are deficient in at least a couple of micronutrients. So just getting a multivitamin and vitamin in, it's cheap, it's effective. This is where I talk about like niche stuff that people overmarket. A multivitamin is very cheap, right? Like you can get your daily vitamins for like pennies, but now people will sell like methylated vitamins and they're like 100 times the price. And there's like no evidence that it's any more effective for meeting your nutritional needs. Right, so just get a basic multivitamin. If you buy a supplement from a product, just make sure it says third-party tested, which means that it's been tested to make sure that it has what it says it has. It's just a stamp on the bottle. Most big brands have it. Another one would be creatine. Creatine is one that people talk a lot about now, right? And for good reason. Creatine not only helps with muscle health, but it seems to have unique cognitive benefits as well. It seems to have some pretty unique benefits for cardiovascular health. For most people, 5 grams per day is enough. For somebody who is larger, who really has a good amount of muscle mass on their body, like if you're over 200 pounds plus and like you're relatively lean, probably closer to 7 to 10 grams per day. I take about 7 or 8 grams daily. I'm really tall, so I'm heavy, so I take 7 or 8 grams. Beyond that, I think a high quality fish oil and omega-3 supplement can be very useful if you don't eat sufficient seafood.
Right.
If you eat seafood a handful of times a week on average, like you're probably good on omega-3s. But an omega-3 supplement's really good. If you are going to choose an omega-3 supplement, make sure that the ratio between omega-3s, EPA to DHA is at least 2 to 1. That's a good starting point. Don't get a general fish oil because it'll be like there's just a bunch of other fatty acids in
Right.
there that are not just omega-3s, right? Beyond that, I think a vitamin D supplement is pretty safe for everybody across the board. If you don't live in Florida, like we do,
Like we do.
a lot of people are deficient in vitamin D. And one more I will add is a high quality magnesium supplement. Like I think it's God, like I'm going to butcher the statistic, but a large percentage of the population is significantly deficient in magnesium. Those are the ones that across the board, Dr. Gila, I feel comfortable saying like everybody should take this.
Right. Yeah.
And then there are a bunch that are, I think, just a scam in many ways.
Right. Right.
And then there are a bunch like that are very specific that just depends on whether you're deficient in something or not.
That or not. Yeah.
Here's the other thing about supplementation. It's like it helps if you are deficient, but there isn't much evidence that mega dosing stuff, if you're already sufficient, is going to have any additional benefit. Like
Impact.
vitamin C is one that we see often,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And it's like take these mega doses of vitamin C, and I
Right.
think I could be wrong here. I think there is some minimal evidence that it could help a little bit with immunity, but there's no evidence that just like taking a crazy amount of vitamin C is helpful for anything.
Right.
But it's like it's everywhere, right? You walk into Walgreens, vitamin C,
Vitamin
like
C.
boost immune function. That here, perfect example of what I was saying, like effect size, boost immune function. Yeah, but by how much,
Right. Yeah.
right?
And there's
Very
a-
minimal if you already consume adequate amount of vitamin C and you're healthy.
Right. 100%. I see that all the time. And it's funny, your list is exactly what I have of vitamins and
Okay.
supplements. Literally, like, my patients are expecting this long list of things that, I'm like, nope, and I don't sell any of it, and you just pick it up, and these are the sources to pick it up from. It's literally
Gila,
those things.
What breaks my heart, and I see this a lot with peri and postmenopausal women, is that they have a laundry list of things they're taking, and they're spending hundreds, sometimes thousands of dollars a month on supplements. And, I have this conversation. To me, one of the most rewarding parts of my job is when we work specifically with a woman who's in their mid to late 40s and above. I mean, we work with some women in their 70s who are just getting started strength training, and to me, that's super cool because it shows that the message is reaching the right people,
Getting there. Yeah.
right? But when we work with that particular type of person, and I've had one client that I've worked with now for over 5 years, and her story to me is really amazing because I think it paints the picture. She was a chronic dieter and long distance runner her whole life, and now being postmenopausal. One of the things that happens after menopause is there is a change in how your body distributes body fat, right? You don't necessarily gain weight, but you start to put more body fat on around the midsection. Anyways, this particular client also struggled a lot psychologically with dieting because she's been trying so hard for so long and just seeing her body composition go in the wrong direction. And the first consultation I had with her, I was like, do you trust me? And she said, why? And I said, because we're going to run way less. We're going to start lifting weights, and we're not going to count our calories. We're going to focus on developing a healthier diet overall. And she was like, that sounds scary, but let's do it. And this is a person who had never lifted weights. A year later, she's doing pull-ups. She's not so hyperfixated on her weight. She looks so much better because we're doing the right thing. So I think that's really the power of having the right kind of strategy and bringing it back to what I mentioned initially of when I have a consult with somebody who's spending hundreds of dollars or thousands of dollars on supplements. It's typically women in this age group because they struggle so much, they feel so much pain, and it's so easy to market a simple solution to them.
Right.
And the conversation is always around like, well, I think my body's just broken because I talked to this doctor and they sold me these liver cleansing supplements because my liver needs to be cleansed, because if my liver's not cleansed, then I can't dump the toxins out of my body, and the toxins are what's keeping me fat. And I'm like, I am so sorry you're going through this, but there is not a single word that came out of your mouth that is factually correct, right?
Yes.
It's like, let's take all that money, save that money, enjoy that money with your family, and let's focus on improving your overall lifestyle, and the results are always amazing.
Let me ask you a question. What kind of like nutrition research is exciting to you over the next 5 to 10 years? Like, what do you see happening in your space that excites you and you're like, I can't wait for this?
Gosh, that's a really great question. I think the fundamentals of nutrition for body composition are fairly basic.
Hmm.
I did my PhD specifically in a lab where we looked at the disease preventative effects of specific foods. So in the functional nutrition space, I think that space is really cool.
Hmm.
So we did a lot of work on how different types of beans can help reduce the progression of cardiovascular disease
Hmm.
and try to determine what are the specific compounds in those foods, like the phytonutrients, for example. Um, we did specific work on the extract of a fruit called momordica. It's a bitter melon,
Hmm.
and seeing how that helps with blood sugar regulation. So there are these like specific things we can do about or do with our diet that will help really improve really specific outcomes. Right, because from blood sugar, cholesterol, cardiovascular disease, like overall body composition has the biggest impact on health.
Hmm.
But then there are these little nuanced things that we can do to improve it further if necessary. I think having more research in the area of the gut microbiome is really interesting as well.
Yes.
Even though in many ways it's in its infancy, and to be honest, this is not an area where I'm super well versed in.
Hmm.
But I did have a colleague when I was doing my PhD where this was her primary area of research. Um, and it's just fascinating how the gut microbiome is really linked to all sort of health outcomes as well.
Right.
And I think really being able to discern those differences in terms of the gut microbiota, what should we focus on more, what has certain impacts is really cool.
Hmm.
And the last area I'll share, just because I've always really liked sports performance,
Hmm.
is sports nutrition. My
Yeah.
postdoctoral mentor, he's a sports nutrition researcher. A lot of what he does is research in the areas of nutrient timing, around protein and carbohydrates to optimize performance.
Hmm.
I think that stuff is super cool.
Yeah, that's amazing. Let our audience know how where can they find out more about you? Where can they, follow you, as well as how can they work with you?
Yeah. And first and foremost, thank you for the opportunity. I really appreciated this, and it was a ton of fun too. And
Hmm.
if you ever want to do it in person, I come down to Miami
I
pretty
know. I
often. So
think
just let
we
me
we
know.
will do part two in person, Dr. Joey,
Okay,
100%. I didn't realize
perfect.
you were local.
So, in terms of where to find me, I'm active on all social media platforms.
Hmm.
So, Instagram is the primary place where I'm active on. If you want to learn more in depth in terms of these topics, I do a ton on YouTube and my podcast, which my YouTube and my podcast are the same thing,
Hmm.
just the Dr. Joey Munoz show. I have a free resource that I would love to share with your audience as well.
Yes. Hmm.
To make it super simple, I don't know if you'll put links down in the
We
description, but to
will.
make it super
Yes.
simple, if you comment or send me a message on Instagram and just say Jila, Jila,
Hmm.
we'll set up a little automation. I'll send you over my free ebook. When I talked about earlier, like the variables of nutrition and training being too nitty gritty, I have a book that details all of that. Happy to give it to you for
Amazing.
free. And I
Amazing.
always encourage people to read that resource before they inquire to work with us because it'll just give them more insight in terms of what we would actually be working on if we do work together.
Okay.
But if anything I've shared here has resonated with you and you want help and support improving your lifestyle, your nutrition, your exercise, have some accountability and support, have somebody build out your overall game plan, you want that educational piece, just inquire to work with us. You can
Hmm.
head over to our website, which is strongstandard.com. You'll fill out an application and book a call, and then we'll just see if we're a good fit to work together.
Amazing. I love that. Thank you so much. Again, thank you for being with me today and for this amazing conversation. So insightful and inspiring. And I look forward to meeting you in person, Dr. Joey. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hila. Appreciate it. And we'll chat soon.